Welcome back to the Monster Lab. This is where it gets interesting. All right, so this mask, we're gonna paint the old way, back in the old days. Now, I had to kind of go back to my roots a little bit to do this. So we're gonna do this without an airbrush, without a quart sprayer, just paintbrushes and a squirt bottle. Here we go. Now I am taking the 1/3 latex, 1/3 paint, regular indoor household paint, and 1/3 water. However, I always use a little less than 1/3 water. So you just brush it on. You won't want to get any areas too thick, but you do want to get in all the cracks so that the whole mask is covered with this rubberized paint. Okay, so I'm gonna get a fan on this and let it dry just a little bit, and then we're gonna add some more colors. All right, so we're going to do a multiple colored base. The colors we're gonna use is a eye color, tooth color, and then kind of a maroon for the gums and such. We'll start with the eyes. This is the same latex, house paint, and water mixture. You want to stay inside the lines here pretty good. All right, so we're going to stay right in this eyeball. And you know, in nature, there's very few like poster white, absolute black, stuff like that. A lot of off colors, muted colors. And so this is kind of an off-white that, you know, you might, oh, they might call it eggshell white or something. I don't know. Just not poster white. All right. Okay, so now we're going to go in. We're going to do lips. And kind of wound areas, gums, such as. Now here I'm just getting a little bit of pink and I'm putting it on real thin. Just to kind of break up the skin tone a little, since we don't have an airbrush to do that with. Okay, Finally, I'm going to put in his teeth, but now this is kind of a zombie alien, so he's got bad teeth, because normally aliens have very good dental plans. I don't know if you knew that. So he's got kind of bad teeth now. All right, so you're probably thinking, this does not look too good, and you're right. But the next step is going to be the magic. So we're going to get a fan on this, dry it completely, I mean like maybe half an hour, and then we're going to move on to the next step. One thing I want to mention before we move on, you know, part of being a professional is the quality of their tools and part of its knowledge, and also techniques, and then the quality of the materials. So if you are picking out things, now these brushes are fine, like if you're putting on epoxy or painting, but they don't work great. To get a little bit better paintbrush will make life a lot easier, just saying. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is spray this maroon rub out on. Now, normally I would spray this on with a quart sprayer. Marcia and I were having a conversation about this, and it's like, no, let's give them some really advanced techniques. Now, you can paint this whole thing with a paintbrush, no problem. There's dozens of different ways to paint. Rub out is one of the best looking, and so we're gonna actually do some advanced techniques on this, even though we're not using airbrushes and quart sprayers and so forth. So this is 70% rubbing alcohol with red ink, flame red, antler brown, and a little bit of black. And basically a good ratio to figure is about 2 ounces per quart of 70% alcohol. So I'm just going to spray this on, and we'll let it dry a little bit, and we'll rub it right back off. I'm going to dry this for 1 minute with the fan. Okay, for this, we're going to need 70% rubbing alcohol, a nice little sponge, and a small bucket with the alcohol in it. Now, you put the sponge in and you really squeeze out the excess so that it's not running in and making the ink come out of the wrinkles. So you just rub it on and just real light touch. It's an artsy touch. Get in, get those teeth, the eyes, and just go over the whole thing. And what I like to do is once I've done that, I've got kind of a dirty sponge on that side. And so I'll flip it over and get it a little cleaner. See how it's staying in the cracks? This is, boy, this is just, in my opinion, the best way to paint. There's lots of different techniques and things, but this just gets those details very realistically and very quickly. Now I'm going to clean the sponge more again, squeeze it pretty darn hard. And get in, we'll make sure we get those eyes really cleaned off. And the teeth. You can get in the little antenna here with your finger or whatever. But you leave it dark in the ears and in the deep spots, just leave it real dark. And you can play around with this stuff. You know, you can put it on overall light. A lot of times I'll put it on lighter over the whole thing, and then I'll get it really dark around the eyes, nose, and mouth, and it's just a little more dramatic that way. Okay, so now that he's rubbed out, he's almost done, because you've got so many colors on there. So next, we're gonna do an advanced technique. We're gonna, even though it's your hand brushing it on and so forth, we're gonna use a speckle technique that I learned with a chip brush. Jordu taught me this trick, but you just cut a chip brush in half and you dip it in FW ink. Now the ink is very diluted. There's maybe a ½ ounce per quart, but you don't have to mix up a quart. You can just mix a little dish and test it. And you want a translucent, subtle effect. Now we're gonna use brown, dark brown. We're gonna use blue, kind of a liver colored maroon, and then off-white. And we're gonna speckle them and let them dry a little between so they don't run into each other. And it just gives a mottled look. And it's very, very realistic, very professional. So we'll start with the brown. And now we're gonna dry it. It won't take long to dry it, maybe a minute. Now we're going to come in with the blue speckles. And I'm starting the flow and then I'm kind of doing a drive-by so you don't get too, my squirter's acting weird. And now we wait. And now maroon. And finally, off-white. Okay, now I'm going to put on some blue and maroon translucent. I'm using Purple Lake and I'm using blue, processed blue, I believe, FW inks. And we always mix them 50-50. That may be a little much for this. We're going to give it a try though. I've thinned this out with a little bit of rubbing alcohol to keep it from being so intense. But you know, he's a zombie, so he's got to have some blue skin around the wounds. Get his lips a little more unhealthy looking. And if you get too much on, just come back with pure rubbing alcohol and blend it away a little bit. basically I'm just breaking up the flesh. You know, real flesh is, it's not one color. You think it is, but it's actually, that's why the modeling and this all helps. Get a little in his gums. All right. Now we're going to come in with purple. And I'm getting a little in his rotting wounds here. Let's see. Now, one little trick. If you do something and you don't like it, you can come back with the sponge and rubbing alcohol and clean it. But be careful, because you don't want to rub all your work with speckling off. But if there's something you don't like, you can go in there and fix it right up. Right now, I'm just trying to make him look a little bit sickly. Get in those wounds. All right, so that's done. Now, we're going to go to the eyes. Since he's a zombie, his eyes are going to be rolled up in the back of his head because, you know, they're out of it. So, again, this is FW Ink I've mixed white with green and yellow and a little bit of blue to come up with this kind of weird aqua color, but no additional rubbing alcohol. You want it to be kind of thick so it's solid. So I'm going to draw in his eyes. All right, just let that dry just a minute. Okay, next we're going to put a little black around the edges. I'm going to put a little up here. As kind of a shadow. And then we'll draw in some like that. The green is not dry. Down low. It's giving me trouble. Get a little in the, little dark in here. What I'm doing here is I'm taking rubbing alcohol and just blending the edges a little bit. Just pure rubbing alcohol. Just because, you know, what an airbrush does naturally, you got to work for with a paintbrush. All right, so here's a little trick. You can take these cheap paintbrushes and just cut them at various heights because they go from little to big. Pick the size circle you want, cut it, and just dip it in the ink. Or it can be house paint, doesn't matter. And you get these beautiful little circles. Just boop. Now this I walked downstairs years ago, and you know, we used to paint these with a paintbrush. And of course, you use the right end of the paintbrush, and the production manager said, "Hey, look at this," and he turned the paintbrush backwards and went, and it's like, you know, it's just one of those things, you know, it makes life easy. Okay, now we're going to take this red pen and make eye veins. So I like to, when I have the time, draw red along the bottom and kind of in the corner of the eye a little bit, and then just bring up these wiggly little veins. See how creepy that is. Next, I like this Liquitex. You can get it locally at a lot of places. It's an artist material. It's gloss medium and varnish. Works great. It's a little bit elastic. And so we're going to take and put that right on these teeth. And gums. Sometimes you get the runny nose going. Get a little bit in the wounds. Okay, next we're going to gloss the eyes with 5-minute epoxy. Take the cheap brushes, just trim them about in half, give you a little more control like that. Put 50-50. Now here's the thing. I don't use names unless I have to, but this is one I have to. DevCon, like the Liquitex, very, very effective. DevCon's available a lot of places, but the DevCon doesn't tend to yellow. And again, it's clear 5-minute epoxy. So you take equal amounts and stir them together pretty darn well. And then paint it over the eye. And that gives it a gloss like none other. And you can also use this on the teeth and things if you want. It's not flexible or as flexible, so I don't like to use it on big areas, but boy, it really makes eyes pop. Okay, so since he's an alien zombie, he needs blood. Now, the blood is made from Liquitex gel. It's a gloss gel. It's gloss gel, gel brilliant, that, and food color. Brand doesn't matter too much. Some brands aren't as red as others, but you mix those together till you get a pretty thick, you know, consistency. You can take one of the cheap brushes and get it in the wounds and such. But he's also been eating. Now, aliens like this, they prefer Xenotopian bladders, but in this case, he's on Earth, so he'll settle for human brains. But you know, you just have to do with what you can do. He can't get everything, and brains are pretty tasty apparently. Get a little of these wounds. All right, now here's my patented technique. I get 2 fingers in the paint and just go. It's a very artful thing. I like to rub a little on the teeth, but I don't like to get them all bloody because you want to see those yellowy teeth. And he's, you know, smeared a little as he gorged himself. So there you have it, an extraterrestrial zombie flesh with no airbrush, no quartz sprayer, but it's still a very elaborate paint job. And he's coming to your town to eat your brains, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Brains. Brains. Okay, that's it. These masks are done, and hopefully we've demystified the mask making process a little bit with this tutorial. And you can come up with any color you want. This guy could be green, it doesn't matter. But if you have the right tools, the right materials, and the right information, you can make a monster. So that was fun, right guys? A good time, right? Yeah, they had a good time. So we'll see you next time, and have fun making monsters.